I ask everyone present to please rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In the absence of clergy, let us bow our heads in a moment of silent reflection or prayer in memory of Officer Jason Rivera and Officer Wilbert Mora, two NYPD officers who lost their lives in service to their city and to our state. We offer our deepest condolences to their family and loved ones, and we have a moment of silence in their honor. Reading of the Journal.
In Senate, Monday, January 24th, 2022, the Senate met pursuant to adjournment. The Journal of Sunday, January 23rd, 2022 was read and approved. On motion, the Senate adjourned.
Without objection, the Journal stands approved as read. Presentation of petitions. Messages from the Assembly. Secretary will read.
Senator Brunson moves to discharge from the Committee on Rules Assembly Bill number 8698, substituted for the identical Senate Bill 7768, third reading calendar 141.
So ordered.
Senator May moves to discharge from the Committee on Rules Assembly Bill number 8799, substituted for the identical Senate Bill 7779, third reading calendar 150.
So ordered.
Senator Skoufis moves to discharge from the Committee on Rules Assembly Bill number 8726, substituted for the identical Senate Bill 7785, third reading calendar 154.
So ordered.
Senator Sanders moves to discharge from the Committee on Rules Assembly Bill number 8771, substituted for the identical Senate Bill 7793, third reading calendar 160.
So ordered.
Senator Comrie moves to discharge from the Committee on Rules Assembly Bill number 8763, substituted for the identical Senate Bill 7802, third reading calendar 168.
So ordered.
Senator Parker moves to discharge from the Committee on Rules Assembly Bill number 8690, substituted for the identical Senate Bill 7815, third reading calendar 179.
So ordered.
Senator Comrie moves to discharge from the Committee on Rules Assembly Bill number 8794, and substituted for the identical Senate Bill 7822, third reading calendar 185.
So ordered. Messages from the Governor. Reports of standing committees. Reports of select committees. Communications and reports from state officers. Motions and resolutions. Senator Gianaris.
Madam President, on page 13, I offer the following amendments to Calendar 122, Senate 7453, by Senator Krueger, and ask that said bill retain its place on third reading calendar.
Secretary will read.
Amendments are received, the bill will retain its place.
Amendments are received. The bill will retain its place on the third reading calendar.
Madam President, on behalf of Senator Myrie, I wish to call up Senate Bill 284A, recalled from the Assembly, which is now at the desk.
Are received. The bill will retain its place on the third reading calendar.
Calendar number 2, Senate Print 284A by Senator Myrie, an act to amend the election law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Krueger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White. Ayes 62.
That was the vote to reconsider the vote by which the bill was passed. Madam President, I now offer the following amendments.
The amendments are received.
Now, at this time, Madam President, I move to adopt the resolution calendar with the exception of Resolutions 1716 and 1718.
All those in favor of adopting the resolution calendar with the exception of resolutions 1716 and 1718, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution calendar is adopted. Senator Gianaris.
Thank you, Madam President. Can we now take up Resolution 1716 by Senator Mannion? Read that resolution's title only and recognize Senator Mannion.
The Secretary will read.
Senate Resolution 716 by Senator Mannion, congratulating Susan Constantino upon the occasion of her retirement after 33 years of distinguished service to Cerebral Palsy Associations of New York State.
Senator Mannion on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to recognize the immeasurable contributions to the people of the state of New York by Susan Constantino. She is retiring after 33 years of distinguished service to the Cerebral Palsy Associations of New York State, and a lifetime of helping others and improving lives. Sue has long been one of the fiercest and most effective advocates for people with disabilities. Her lifetime of service began in Buffalo in the 1980s. It was there that she quickly recognized how technology and the dawn of home computers could aid people with disabilities, and the Special Friends and Computers program was born. She has served on countless commissions, councils, and task forces, leaving a positive and indelible mark. When you ask Susan Constantino for help for someone that has a disability, the answer is always yes. Before the pandemic, she fought to bring telemedicine to the many New Yorkers who might have difficulty making doctor's appointments and needed other services. And during the pandemic, Susan went well above and well beyond to ensure folks got the services that they needed and that they were going to be okay. For Susan Constantino, it was always personal. It was never just a job. That's why she spearheaded the opening of 5 federally qualified health centers in New York City, and that's why she is the epitome of doing more with less. Despite cuts and inadequate funding, she developed and grew programs including community living opportunities, early intervention, special education, and family support services. Her decades of advocacy laid the groundwork and highlighted the need for a separate Senate Standing Committee on Disabilities that I am honored to chair. Madam President, if we had more Sue Constantinos in the world, it surely would be a better place. My most heartfelt congratulations to Sue on her retirement, and my deep, deep thanks for all of her wise counsel and friendship. Thank you, Madam President.
The question is on the resolution. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The resolution is adopted. Senator Gianaris.
Can we now move to Resolution 1718 by Senator Myrie? Read that resolution's title only and recognize Senator Myrie.
The Secretary will read.
Senate Resolution 1718 by Senator Myrie, mourning the death of former New York State Senator Dr. Waldaba H. Stewart, Jr., dedicated political leader, adjunct professor, distinguished citizen, and devoted member of his community.
Senator Myrie on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. To his family, his friends, his colleagues, his community, to his students, our deepest condolences for the profound loss of a great man, Dr. Waldaba Hamilton Stewart, Jr. Dr. Stewart was a Panamanian, a Brooklynite, a Garveyite, an economist, a professor, and a former member of this state Senate. He was a champion for justice and equity. He cared about healthcare justice. Many people don't know, but when this Senate took up and affirmed a woman's right to choose, the 29th and deciding vote was Senator Stewart's vote. But he also cared about healthcare provision in the community. Kings County Hospital in Brooklyn would not be what it is today without his dedication. And when the Rockefeller administration cut treatment for drug addiction, Senator Stewart stood up and said, our community deserves better. And he did so when it wasn't popular. He cared about economic justice, proposed business corridors in Brooklyn, but also agricultural opportunities, particularly for people of African descent, because he recognized that without economic autonomy, we could not prosper. And of course, he was a racial justice champion. He called for accountability and transparency in the Attica uprising. He called out law enforcement corruption where appropriate. And when black kids from his district attended what was then a mostly white Erasmus High School and had rocks thrown at their bus, Senator Stewart stepped in, made peace, and said, this is not what Brooklyn is about. He once said that simple solutions cannot be applied to complex problems, and he lived his life to exemplify that phrase. So for that, He will be missed forever, but he will never, ever be forgotten. Dr. Stewart, may you rest in peace. May your family be blessed, and may your memory forever live in this great state of New York. Thank you, Madam President.
The question is on the resolution. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The resolution is adopted. Senator Gianaris.
At the request of the sponsors, those resolutions are open for co-sponsorship.
The resolutions are open for co-sponsorship. Should you choose not to be a co-sponsor of the resolution, please notify the desk. Senator Gianaris.
Please take up the reading of the calendar.
The Secretary will read.
Calendar number 83, Senate Print 6791A by Senator Kaplan.
The bill is laid aside.
Calendar number 141, Assembly number 8698 by Assemblymember Hunter, an act to amend the insurance law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect on the same date and in the same manner as the chapters of the law of 2021.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 62.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 142, Senate Print 7771 by Senator Hinchey, an act to amend the agriculture and markets law and the public health law.
Read the last section.
Section 5, this act shall take effect on the same date and in the same manner as the chapter of the law of 2021.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 62.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 150, Senate Assembly number 8799 by Assemblymember Cruz, an act to amend the elder law.
Read the last section.
Section 9, this act shall take effect on the same date and in the same manner as the chapter of the law of 2021.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 62.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 152, Senate Print 7783 by Senator Addabbo, an act to amend the agriculture and markets law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the same date and in the same manner as the chapter of the law of 2021.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 62.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 154, Assembly number 8726 by Assemblymember Jacobson, an act to amend the workers' compensation law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the same date and in the same manner as the chapter of the law of 2021.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
In relation to calendar number 154, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Akshar, Borrello, Boyle, Gallivan, Griffo, Jordan, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Rath, Ritchie, Sereno, Steck, Tedisco, and White. Ayes 47, nays 15.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 160, Assembly number 8771 by Assemblymember Perry, an act to amend the banking law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the same date and in the same manner as the chapter of the law of 2021.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
In relation to calendar number 160, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Akshar, Borrello, Boyle, Gallivan, Griffo, Helming, Jordan, Lanza, Martucci, Matera, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rath, Ritchie, Sereno, Steck, Tedisco, and White. Ayes 42, nays 20.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 161, Senate Print 7794 by Senator Mannion, an act to amend the Domestic Relations Law and the Family Court Act.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect on the same date and in the same manner as the chapter of the law of 2021.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 62.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 163, Senate Print 7797 by Senator Sanders, an act to amend the insurance law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the same date and in the same manner as the chapter of the law of 2021.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 62.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 168, Assembly number 8763 by Assemblymember Paulin, enact to amend the Public Service Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2 of this act shall take effect on the same date and in the same manner as the chapter of the laws 2021.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
In relation to calendar 168, those senators voting in the negative are Senators Akshar, Borrello, Galvin, Griffo, Jordan, Lanza, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Ritchie, and Sereno. Ayes 51, nays 11.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 175, Senate Print 7811 by Senator Mayer, enact to amend the labor law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the same date and in the same manner as the chapter of the law of 2021.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Senator Oberacker to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam President. You know, one of the first services that I use of any municipality is the roads. And to speak on some of the numbers that come into play as we look at how these roads are maintained, how they're resurfaced, and how they're repaired. As a former chair of Public Works for Otsego County, I come with a desire to bring these numbers up so we understand sometimes what these pieces of legislation actually mean at a lower municipal level. So Otsego County has 477 center lane miles. A center lane mile is calculated by the number of miles in our county roads going one direction. So in actuality, we have over 954 miles of road to maintain and to potentially pave and resurface. The cost was $110,000 per mile to pave those roads when I was seated as the chair of Public Works. So the 954 times 110 gives us almost $105 million for one of the 9 counties that I represent, if we were to repair and or pave those roads. On an average year, we would do approximately 30 miles, and these are calculated at costs of at least 3 years ago. So for us to do that, it would take almost 32 years to resurface those roads. The hauling of the oil, the hauling of the stone, the hauling of the finished pavement are all going to increase per this piece of legislation. Our local municipalities simply cannot afford to have this mandate pushed down on them. Petrochemicals in general are on the rise, and we know this. So the cost not only to haul, but to produce the actual asphalt that will be coming to our municipalities will increase. One of the things we were very proud of was our shared services between the municipalities, where we would get the Department of Works from the certain municipalities to offer up their drivers to haul to make our paving that much more efficient. That cost will now go up per this legislation. Budgets have already been put together and submitted without the increased cost, again, of this piece of legislation. I think we can see where when we use a top-down approach and we don't take in the stakeholders at the level that it most affects, these things can be extremely detrimental. You know, in my rural area, and I traveled last month over 3,000 miles in my district. I've been on many of these roads in various states of repair, and I can tell you unequivocally that this piece of legislation will have dire effects on maintaining these roads. And therefore, Madam President, I will be voting in the negative, and I urge all of my colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
Senator Obaraca to be recorded in the negative. Senator Mira to explain her vote.
Thank you, Madam President, and I appreciate my colleagues' comments, but I do want to clarify. One, we are voting on a chapter amendment of a bill that was previously adopted by this House and the Assembly, signed by the governor, that does one very simple thing. It says that on a prevailing wage project, which includes roads, not limited to roads, the person who drives what they call aggregate supply from, for example, a place could be 5 miles away from the site, to the site, dumps the aggregate supply, and then drives back. For that drive to and from, that job is prevailing wage, as well as the guys who are working on the site. That's all this bill did. And in fact, the chapter amendment limited the concerns that my colleague has raised by clarifying, for example, coming from another state into New York to bring this aggregate supply, that part of it would not be covered by the bill. But the bill says to our brothers and sisters who have these jobs, they are entitled to prevailing wage for their work related to a prevailing wage job. And that's simply what the bill does. I would point out that in Nassau and Suffolk, under regulations promulgated by the New York State Department of Labor, this traffic of aggregate supply is already covered by prevailing wage. And I don't think that Nassau and Suffolk have gone bankrupt, or their towns and villages have, by complying with this requirement. So this simply says let's have on a statewide basis what the Department of Labor already implemented for Nassau and Suffolk. And in passing this chapter amendment, we are saying to our brothers and sisters who do this work, as well as those that pay them, that it ought to be fair across the board. Everyone should be the beneficiary of the prevailing wage if they're on a prevailing wage job. So I urge my colleagues to vote yes. And with that, thank you, Madam President.
Senator Mira to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 175, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Akshar, Borrello, Galvin, Griffo, Helming, Jordan, Obaraca, O'Mara, Palumbo, Rath, Sereno, Steck, and Tedisco. Ayes 49, nays 13.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 179, Assembly number 8690 by Assemblymember Cruz, an act to amend the mental hygiene law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act will take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adavo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 62.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 181, Senate Print 7817 by Senator Savino, an act to amend the chapter of the laws of 2021.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act will take effect on the same date and in the same manner as the chapter of the laws of 2021.
Call the roll.
Adavo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 62.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 185, Assembly number 8794 by Assemblymember.
Laid aside.
Calendar number 200, Senate Print 7843 by Senator Ramos, an act to amend the workers' compensation law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act will take effect on the same date and in the same manner as the chapter of the laws of 2021.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar number 200, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Boyle, Galvin, Helming, Jordan, Lanza, Martucci, Obaraca, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rath, Ritchie, Sereno, Steck, and Tedisco. Ayes 47, nays 15.
The bill is passed. Senator Senator Lou. Calendar.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to answer for Senator Gianaris. Please go to the reading of the controversial calendar, Madam President.
The Secretary will ring the bell. The Secretary will read.
Calendar number 83, Senate Print 6791A by Senator Kaplan, an act to amend the labor law.
Senator Lanza, why do you rise?
Madam President, I believe there's an amendment at the desk. I waive the reading of that amendment and ask that you recognize Senator Steck to be heard.
Thank you, Senator Lanza. Upon review of the amendment in accordance with Rule 6, Section 4B, I rule it non-germane and out of order at this time.
Accordingly, Madam President, I appeal the ruling of the chair and ask that Senator Steck be recognized and heard.
The appeal has been made and recognized, and Senator Steck may be heard.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to appeal that the amendment is germane to the bill in chief. Cost to heat one's home this year is up 30% from last year. Homeowners across the state are struggling to pay their bills, and inflation is at a 30-year high. In fact, in my district this past weekend, it routinely got to below zero. This amendment would provide $300 to individuals and $600 to families of homeowners and renters to help pay for the additional cost to heat their homes, and provides much-needed financial relief. This tax credit would be capped to $125,000 for individuals and $250,000 for married couples. And we feel that with a $7 billion surplus, this money would be best spent returning it to the taxpayers to help offset their home heating costs this year. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senators. I want to remind the House that the vote is on the procedures of the House and the ruling of the chair. Those in favor of overruling the chair signify by saying aye.
Consent, please waive the showing of hands and record each member of the minority in the affirmative.
Without objection, so ordered. Announce the results.
Ayes 20.
The ruling of the chair stands and the bill in chief is before the House. Senator Borrello.
Madam President, will the sponsor yield for a question?
Not the sponsor, Senator Borrello, but I'd be happy to yield for questions on her behalf.
Okay.
The sponsor yield.
Thank you. I guess the first question, I appreciate you, Senator Mayer, taking these questions, but is the sponsor here to debate this bill?
I believe the sponsor did not know this bill would be subject to a debate, and since we can vote remotely, I believe that she is not present, and therefore I am doing the bill.
Sponsor yield for another question?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes, sure.
Yes. Yes, thank you again. Let me start off by saying that I am certainly in favor of this bill. I'll be supporting this bill. But I have some concerns overall about our unemployment insurance. You know, I'm a business owner myself. I can tell you that we all were quite surprised by the dramatic increase in our unemployment insurance costs. So my first question is, we passed legislation last year to freeze the experience rating for unemployment insurance, yet myself and every other business owner in New York State opened up their unemployment insurance bill and saw dramatic increases. So why did that occur if we froze the experience rating?
My understanding is that this bill, first place, let me say, we all share the concern about the rise in these rates, and that's the reason for this bill, and I'm glad that you'll be supporting it. My understanding is that this bill eliminates the consideration of the solvency of the trust fund for the next 2 years and allows us to freeze the increase in rates at least partially in year 1 and also in year 2.
Madam President, will the sponsor continue to yield?
Does the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
Thank you again. So we had the opportunity last year to do this, and we didn't. We froze the experience rating, but we didn't freeze the rate. So will the employers in New York State be receiving a rebate check for the gigantic bills that they just paid for unemployment insurance?
New York are going to benefit by this legislation by reducing the amount they're going to have to pay every month as the impact of COVID goes on longer and hurts small businesses more than anyone could have anticipated. So I think all small businesses, including the NFIB and the Business Council, support this legislation as being good for business.
President, will sponsor continue to yield?
Does the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
I'm not trying to be a pain here, but quite honestly, I'm going to get this question because I've had asked of me by my own wife, who runs our businesses. Will businesses that have already paid these unemployment insurance premiums get a rebate when this bill passes?
Nothing in this bill that orders a rebate, but I'm confident in the context of the budget conversations. If you or any other member wants to argue that a rebate should be issued, that is something to discuss. But as you know, the issue of the solvency of the fund poses substantial long-term problems. But if we can get a rebate, I'm sure you'll have many colleagues agreeing that's a good thing.
Thank you. Madam President, will sponsor continue to yield?
Does the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
Are you aware that I think 32 states now have taken their federal COVID relief money and they've applied it to their unemployment insurance fund? As you may be aware, New York State used to have about a $2.6 billion surplus in the unemployment insurance fund. Keep in mind, that's paid by business owners like myself and every business owner in New York State, not by the government. And now, thanks to bad government policy, essentially, we've got a $9 billion deficit. So would you or would the majority in general be in favor of diverting some of the unallocated funds to filling that crater of our $9 billion unemployment insurance fund deficit?
Please, I would respectfully disagree with the reason for the crater. The reason for the crater is that we had COVID and millions of New Yorkers were dependent on unemployment insurance just to get by. And thankfully, we had a system, while imperfect, and many of us complained about it, did get us through that. So I am aware that other states have used some of their federal money. I think if we do it right now, we don't have to wait for the budget. We pass this now, we start immediately reducing the rate that small businesses and businesses have to pay. So I think it's a wise choice. If we want to argue in the budget about using some of those funds, then let's get at that.
Madam President, will sponsor continue to yield?
Does the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
So I'm assuming that, obviously, with that $9 billion hole still being there, that's owed to the federal government, that eventually that's going to have to be paid back with interest. Do you know what the impact on the unemployment insurance fund will be when that occurs?
Don't, Senator Burrell, but I would add this. This is a bill before this House that would help small businesses today and allow us to do this in the face of the insolvency. So we recognize there's insolvency. We'll have to deal with that.
Madam President, on the bill.
Senator Borrello on the bill.
First of all, Senator Mayer, thank you very much for stepping in. Appreciate it. And I think you and I both share these concerns for our small businesses. But I can tell you as a business owner myself that this was a devastating impact on all of our businesses. And to go from having to, we have businesses that didn't lay off a single person, not a single person during the pandemic, that are seeing dramatic increases in their unemployment insurance rates. And what this bill really is doing, as good as it is essentially kicking the can down the road, because it's not addressing the fundamental problem of a $9 billion, with a B, deficit in our unemployment insurance fund. Now, we may disagree on how that number came about, but I can tell you that New York State has still yet to address how much fraud was in our unemployment insurance. I asked that question of the Commissioner of the Department of Labor. She danced around it and said that, well, we avoided about $2 billion in fraud. But she wouldn't actually tell us, because I'm sure she doesn't know how much fraud we actually experienced in our unemployment insurance. And that's really troubling, because other states, including California, have identified that number. And I think that would be justification for diverting the unspent federal money that we have to that unemployment insurance fund, because that's what this is really about. This is a good step. It will help us. But ultimately, we are going to have to pay that bill at some point. And right now, we're kicking the can down the road as interest accrues on that $9 billion that is on the backs of every single employer in New York State. That's the troubling part of this. So I really think we need to look at what we spend our money on here in New York State. We have a huge budget surplus. We have unspent federal relief money. And we have yet to address the fundamental problem that every single employer in New York State is paying more in unemployment insurance than they ever have. And according to the Business Council, it's going to take more than a decade to make up that $9 billion surplus if some of that money from the federal government isn't diverted to that fund. A decade on the backs of every single employer in New York State. So this is kind of like a bucket of water in the ocean, quite frankly. Happy to have it, glad we're doing it, but we need to step up and we need to fill that crater and make sure that that $9 billion deficit is not a burden on our already overburdened businesses in New York State. So, Madam President, with that, I will be supporting the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any other senators wishing to be heard? Seeing and hearing none, debate is closed. The secretary will ring the bell. Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 62.
Sorry. Senator Mayer to explain her vote.
Thank you very much. First, I want to thank Senator Kaplan for bringing this very important bill to the floor and to our leader for making sure that we put a bill on for a vote, and I'm confident that we'll have so many supporters, that not only reflects the challenges of our business community, but at the same time, in the same bill, deals with the needs of our constituents to deal with their continued unemployment. We didn't get to discuss this in the debate, but the bill temporarily overrides the current freeze on increases to the maximum weekly benefit rate for unemployment. So for districts like mine, particularly in the restaurant and bar sector and the hospitality sector, where my small bars and restaurants still suffer and yet are paying unemployment insurance tax rates that are too high, and at the same time, their employees are still eligible for, and some are receiving unemployment. This bill is a win-win. And I recognize we have challenges with the unemployment situation that was far in excess of anything New York State could have ever contemplated. And it's imperfect, and many of us have complained about it and continue to fight for it to be better. But in the interim, we have a bill that helps our small businesses and helps our constituents who have been laid off or lost their jobs. I can't think of a more pressing and important thing to do, and I urge my colleagues to vote yes. Thank you to Senator Kaplan for her leadership on behalf of small businesses and on behalf of our constituents throughout the state. I'll be voting yes.
Senator Mayer to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
Ayes 62.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 185, Assembly number 8794 by Assemblymember Carroll, enactment of the Public Authorities Law.
Senator Lanza, why do you rise?
Madam President, I believe there's an amendment at the desk. I waive the reading of that amendment and ask that you recognize Senator Palumbo to be heard.
Thank you, Senator Lanza. Upon review of the amendment in accordance with Rule 6, Section 4B, I rule it non-germane and out of order at this time.
Accordingly, Madam President, I appeal the ruling of the chair and ask that Senator Palumbo be recognized.
The appeal has been made and recognized, and Senator Palumbo may be heard.
Thank you, Madam President, for recognizing me for the purposes of this appeal. With respect to germaneness, this proposed amendment would make pushing someone onto a subway track, onto the tracks of a subway, a Class C violent felony. And the bill in chief, which I support, I previously supported, is an excellent bill, actually. It provides rules and guidelines for the public as to what they should be doing in the event someone is pushed on the tracks. So these are obviously almost mirror the same issue. Now, if I may, I'd like to just discuss some of the statistics that we've seen and why this is such a critical and important bill. I have from the Daily News from February 14th of last year, a little bit less than a year ago. The title is, "Despite Big Decrease in Riders During COVID Pandemic, New York City Seeing Terrifying String of Strap Hangers Shoved Onto the Subway Tracks." If you look at the statistics, the average swipe of the turnstiles on a weekday prior to the pandemic was 5.5 million passengers. In 2020, 1.7 million riders were averaged a day. That's a 70% decline in ridership. So when you think about that ultimate decline, well, you know, that's unfortunate. That's part of the pandemic issues that we've been dealing with. However, with millions and millions of riders, less riders on the subway, there were still 26 individuals in the year 2020, 26 of them shoved onto the tracks. That was a 30% increase from 2019, 30% more than the year before when they had 70% more individuals riding the subway. And quite frankly, if I may suggest to my colleagues, subway pushing is not a typical type of crime because of the intent of it. Now, we have many people who are mentally ill, as we've seen. And unfortunately, because of some of the reforms that we've seen in the past few years, people are not in custody. And they're not getting the available services that they could have otherwise gotten with mental health issues. We have intentional acts where people certainly understand the nature and consequences of their actions. And when it's an intentional act, my friends, it's an act of terrorism. As we sit here today, with what we've just seen in the past few months, we have passengers standing on the stairway because they're terrified, because they're afraid to go to work. And so now, if I push someone on the tracks, we had an individual just recently pushed onto the tracks who sustained some injuries. It's probably a misdemeanor. If they're fortunately and lucky enough to get away with their life and climb back onto the platform, it's a harassment. It's not even a crime. So what this bill would do would create a new crime, making it a serious crime, of course, a Class C violent felony, for the mere act of pushing someone on the tracks where they could lose their lives. We have seen Michelle Alyssa go. We could go through many different names and many of these victims that we've seen, but quite frankly, the individuals who were the actors, the bad actors, Madam President, were people who otherwise have seen, without a terrible, terrible tragedy and loss of life, they otherwise just move through the criminal justice system, maybe get the mental help they need, but not those individuals that I'm specifically speaking of, the ones with the mental health issues, the ones that are doing it to be malicious. It's random, it's terrifying, and something needs to be done. So as such, Madam President, this bill is certainly germane to the underlying bill in chief, and quite frankly, it's something that we need to do now. This is the time for it. It's very timely. We're trying to get out of this pandemic. We're trying to have our businesses recover, and we're trying to let the citizens of this state just go to work without fear in their heart. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. I want to remind the House the vote is on the procedures of the House and the ruling of the chair. Those in favor of overruling the chair signify by saying aye.
By unanimous consent, Madam President, please waive the showing of hands and record each member of the minority in the affirmative.
Without objection, so ordered. Announce the result.
Ayes 20.
The ruling of the chair stands and the bill in chief is before the House. Are there any other senators wishing to be heard? Senator, I apologize. Senator, Are you on the bill, Senator Jordan, or to explain your vote? Right to you. Seeing and hearing none, debate is closed. The secretary will ring the bell. Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect on the same date and in the same manner as a chapter of the law of 2021.
Senator Jordan to explain her vote.
Thank you, Madam President. I believe this is a good bill because it deals with safety, public safety, specifically subway traffic safety. I'm going to be voting in the affirmative on this bill. It mandates that New York City Transit Authority include instructions on how to react safely, timely, and effectively when a person falls onto the subway tracks as part of its ongoing safety education package. The thought of falling on the tracks is horrifying. And this is good information to get out there because, according to the NYPD, 461 felony assaults were reported on the subway system in 2021, and 30 involved a person being pushed onto the subway tracks. The thought of being pushed onto subway tracks is even more horrifying than just falling on them. We are still in the first month of the year, and already police know of 5 assaults this year in which a person was shoved onto the tracks. While this bill is an excellent solution for after the act, if we really want to help, we should be proactive in having less of these terrible accidents happening. Repealing the bail reform law passed and lauded by the majority would do just that. I'll give you several instances where bail reform added to the number of shovings onto the subway tracks. In October of 2021, Antonio Eguibarra was charged with attempted second-degree murder for allegedly pushing a 42-year-old man against the side of a number 3 train who narrowly avoided getting crushed under the train's wheels. Eguibarra had previously been set free without bail for an assault that left the victim with injuries of a black eye, a broken nose, and a knocked-out tooth. She had been charged with third-degree assault, a misdemeanor that does not allow for a judge's discretion and for a judge to impose bail under the new bail reform. Then there was the repeat offender, Bernardo Carbajal, who stabbed his victim 8 times and then pushed him onto the subway tracks. If only Carbajal was held for bail for his previous 2 arrests in 2021 for 2 other stabbing incidents. We can also talk about Ricardo Hernandez, who tried to shove an undercover policeman onto subway tracks in Queens last April. At Hernandez's arraignment, Queens Supreme Court Justice Louis Knock said the state's bail reform did not allow him to hold Hernandez in jail for that shoving. So these assaults bring me back to the point I want to make. While Senator Comrie's bill will most certainly help those who fall and maybe those who are pushed onto the subway tracks, we can save many, many more lives by repealing bail reform put in place by the majorities of the Senate and the Assembly in January of 2020 that allow repeat offenders to walk free and recommit crimes. Thank you.
To be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the result.
Ayes 62.
The bill is passed. Senator Liu, that completes the reading of today's calendar.
Madam President, there's a report of the Finance Committee at the desk. Please take it up and recognize Senator Persaud on that report.
The secretary will read.
Senator Krueger from the Committee on Finance reports the following nominations. As Commissioner of the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, Jacqueline Bray. As Superintendent of the Department of Financial Services, Adrian Harris. As Commissioner of the Office of Addiction Services and Supports, Dr. Chinazo Cunningham.
Senator Persaud.
Thank you, Madam President. On behalf of Senator Krueger, Chair of Finance, I'd like to move the nomination of Jacqueline Bray to the position of Commissioner of the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services to the floor. Please recognize any senator wishing to speak on this nomination.
I don't believe a senator is going to speak, so the question is on the nomination of Jacqueline Bray to the position of Commissioner of the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services. Call the roll.
Vote in the negative. Norris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins White. Voting in the negative on the nomination, Senators Akshar, Borrello, Boyle, Gallivan, Griffo, Jordan, Lanza, Martucci, Matera, Oberacker, Ort, Palumbo, Rath, Ritchie, Sereno, Steck, Tedesco, and White.
Jacqueline Bray is confirmed to the position of Commissioner of the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services. Secretary will continue to read.
On the nomination of Adrian Harris, those senators voted in the negative.
No.
Call the roll. As Superintendent of the Department of Financial Services, Adrian Harris.
Senator Prasad.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, on behalf of Senator Kruger, I move the nomination of Adrian Harris to the position of Superintendent of the Department of Financial Services to the floor. Please recognize any senator wishing to speak on the nomination.
Senator Sanders on the nomination.
Thank you, Madam President. It's good to see all of you as much as I'm seeing you. I am here to speak on the nomination of Adrian Harris to be the Superintendent of the Department of Financial Services. As the chair of banks, I have a special responsibility here to make sure that we do due diligence on such a person. And I became aware of concerns that some had on her relations with the fintech industry. So I set out to look into this matter very much, and I actually viewed just about every video there is on this issue to see and hear for myself what these words are and what is the context that they were given. Not only that, I went line by line with them, with her. Some of these things were troubling, and I actually did go line by line with her. I came away, yes, I spoke of other parts, not just that. I spoke of her view on DFS as a whole and the many things that it can do. But I came away convinced that this gifted person was the right one to be in charge of the DFS, the Department of Financial Services. I came away so convinced that I decided to come to the floor today to make it as official as I can that I did the due diligence that most people are talking about. And having heard and seen it, I am here to say that she will make a fine superintendent, and I look forward to working with her, as all of us should, to ensure that she is the person that all of us need her to be. So with that, I vote yes, Madam President. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. The question is on the nomination of Adrian Harris to the position of Superintendent of the Department of Financial Services. Call the roll.
Addabbo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins White.
Announce the result.
In relation to the nomination of Adrian Harris, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Biaggi, Boyle, Brisport, Giannaris, Liu, Oberacker, Ramos, Steck, and Tedesco.
The nominee, Adrian Harris, is confirmed to the position of Superintendent of the Department of Financial Services. Secretary will continue to read.
As Commissioner of the Office of Addiction Services and Supports, Dr. Chinazo Cunningham.
Senator Prasad. Thank you again, Madam President. On behalf of Senator Kruger, I move the nomination of Dr. Chinazo Cunningham to the position of Commissioner of the Office of Addiction Services and Support to the floor. Please recognize any senators wishing to speak on the nomination.
Senator Rivera on the nomination.
Thank you, Madam President. I stand up to speak on behalf of certainly of myself, but of all of our colleagues who are voting in the affirmative for this very talented and skilled nominee. I thank the governor for sending her up to us, and I certainly will vote in the affirmative. There's a couple of things that I wanted to underline, Madam President, and the reason that I am so supportive of her nomination, it is because her entire life's work has been dedicated to the concept of harm reduction. Harm reduction as a modality for how we deal with folks who are drug users. And I wanted to linger on that for a second, Madam President, because not only do I think it is important to talk about how it's going to change the way that this agency does its business, but I believe that that the way that she will change this agency will save many, many lives. And I will also, Madam President, wanted to underline, based on the comments of some of my colleagues over the last couple of weeks, in the nomination of another nominee that we approved just a few days ago, and the comments then about a set of policies which at this moment the state of New York is not pursuing, although many of us are pushing for that to be the case. But I thought it was necessary to kind of just speak for a second about it. In the case of Dr. Cunningham, she's dedicated her life to harm reduction as a modality. Now, harm reduction, my colleagues, is a way to think about people who use drugs as people first. They might use drugs, but they are people first. And we must meet them where they are. The fact of the matter is, Madam President, that criminalization and incarceration has not worked. We have had not only thousands of people die from drug overdoses, but certainly during the pandemic, Madam President, the affliction has gotten worse. And we cannot arrest our way out of this. We cannot put people in jail and think that they're going to get better. We have to do something different, and that is exactly what the modality of harm reduction is. And Madam President, one thing in particular that, again, the state of New York has not yet pursued, although I have a couple of pieces of legislation to deal with it, as well as I am asking and talking with our governor to see if they would actually become a reality in the rest of the state, overdose prevention centers, places where people will use drugs under medical supervision. And I've heard my colleagues talk about this. And I will tell you, just yesterday there was a piece of news that made me incredibly proud of the work that I have been doing to make this a reality. In the city of New York, in the 2 months that the two facilities have been operating, 114 lives have been saved. 114 individuals who will have an opportunity to get treatment, who will have an opportunity to get better, who will have an opportunity to recover because they are not in the ground. And that is precisely why this modality, Madam President, and the work that I believe that this incredible nominee, Dr. Cunningham, will do with this agency, ultimately that is what it's about. It's about saving lives. So let's put the stigma to the side, Madam President. Let's not consistently think about this as a way to arrest our way out of it, to think that people that use drugs are criminals. That has not worked. I want to save lives of people all over the state, in every single state, in every single part of the city, in every single part of the state. Everybody deserves to live. And that's why I'm very proud to vote for this nominee and very proud to work with her in the weeks, months, and years to come to make sure that we save New Yorkers' lives. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Rivera. The question is on the nomination. Senator Lanza. Oh, Senator Lanza on the nomination.
Thank you, Madam President. You know, I agree with a lot of what my good friend Senator Rivera said about addiction. And I respect the work he does in that regard. It is a horrific problem here in the state of New York. We have record numbers of our citizens, especially young people, dying because of drug overdoses. So whatever we've done, all of us, every one of us in this state, whatever we think we have done, it is not working. Where I disagree, and very fundamentally, is on the issue of these centers where the state of New York, the city of New York, is inviting citizens in and saying, sit down and do heroin. That's where we have a fundamental disagreement. It is that disagreement which requires that I vote my conscience and do not support Dr. Cunningham, who believes that's a good idea. And I take exception, civilly and respectfully, with the idea that 114 people have been saved in these centers because someone gave them Narcan. I would argue that 114 people almost died because the city of New York and the state of New York said, here, do drugs. Perhaps if they were not there and did not feel safe and sanctioned with all these supervisors, they may not have done drugs that day and they may not have overdosed. But I certainly do not consider it a success to say, while we were supervising 114 people, they almost died. Doesn't sound like supervision to me. And I will say, I know times change and things change and we have to look at things. I agree with Senator Rivera. I don't believe people in addiction ought to be arrested. That's not the answer. We're not going to arrest our way out of addiction, but we're not going to drug our way out of addiction either. And to me, I think back to what I thought was normal. When I was a kid, doctors did not hand you a needle and tell you to pump poison in your body. And because this doctor does, I cannot support her nomination.
The question is on the nomination of Dr. Chinazo Cunningham to the position of Commission of the Office of Addiction Services and Supports. Call the roll.
Adavo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
In relation to the nomination of Dr. Chinazo Cunningham, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Akshar, Borrello, Boyle, Gallivan, Griffo, Jordan, Lanza, Martucci, Matera, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rath, Ritchie, Sereno, Steck, Tedisco, and White.
The nominee, Dr. Chinazo Cunningham, is confirmed to the position of Commission of the Office of Addiction Services and Supports. Senator Liu.
Madam President, is there any further business at the desk?
There is no further business at the desk.
Then I move to adjourn until Wednesday, January 26th at 11 a.m.
On motion, the Senate stands adjourned until Wednesday, January 26th at 11 a.m.